I am Brian Odhiambo. Brian Odhiambo is a youth. Brian Odhiambo is a Kenyan citizen, currently residing in the slum setup of Kibra. I am a community developer with more than 8 years of experience, particularly being a protagonist of boy child empowerment, where I hold firm the belief that the boy child should also be given a space to reason and a space to speak. When I talk about Brian being a community developer, I mean, how does Kibra, I think is the second largest slum in Africa, after Soweto, if I'm not wrong, that how do we ensure that our people are free from the shackles of poverty? How do we ensure that we reduce the cases of gender-based violence? How do we ensure that cases of rape are reduced drastically? How do we ensure that drug and substance abuse that maybe could relate to crime in the long run is reduced? Lastly, Brian is a political analyst, where we try to delve into the issues that are affecting our country as active citizens, so that when we are making decisions, then we make informed decisions based on what exactly is going on in the country. And maybe in the near future, we will also be aspirants in some political spaces, God willing. Based on the country or the state of the country, I need responses. I don't think I have rhetorical questions. I need responses to my questions. Number one, how do we decimate the issue on corruption? Number two, how do we go away from the Mtuwetu syndrome as a country, which is basically how do we put an end to tribalism? Because this is an issue that is, drawing the country back to the trenches. Number three, and lastly, what modalities are we supposed to use to put our politicians in check and ensure that everything is done in the right way? I'll describe the state of the nation currently as a moment where Kenya is in tenterhooks, whereby we are seeing a lot of rhetoric, we are seeing a lot of happening, we are seeing a lot of activities, some that are people-centered, but others that are individually centered, if I can say that. Whereby I feel like the nation is in a confusion mode. The president is trying to steer us back to a development agenda. Then again, we have an opposition that is against what the president is trying to do. And then now we have another group of people whose some in that group are supporting the government. Then the same group, some are supporting the government, but some are not supporting the government. All these people have masses. They go to different places, they pull crowds, which means that a lot of Kenyans are believing in very different things. And therefore, Kenya is being held at a certain point that if we are not careful, then we might fall off and we might fail to realize, some of our dreams. I say this because people are starting to retract to their tribal cocoons, where Luos are looking for their fellow Luos, Kikuyus are looking for their fellow Kikuyus, where we are being told, usiguze murima. We have the Luyas from Western who are also going back to their own people. So it's like we are leaving a vacuum on Kenya as a country, where we are going back to Kenyans based on their, tribal cocoons. So from me, I think that is the state of the nation currently. The problem starts with we as the Kenyan, and then the solution should come from we as the Kenyan. The solution is for us to realize that indeed there is a problem. Because you cannot find a solution when you don't see a problem. It is us as Kenyans to think of tribalism as a problem. It is us as Kenyans to know the fact that the moment a Kikuyu cannot trade with a Luo, then it means there is a problem. So therefore, we need to rethink, think, and unthink as people that what defines us as a Kenyan, what defines us as Kenyans, so that we will devise a solution to our problems as one, as Kenyans, and not as Luos, not as Kikuyus, not as Kambas, but as a country. Secondly, there has been a communication dislink between the upper and the lower cadre, whereby the government is trying to propagate a certain agenda. But now how this agenda is being communicated to the common mwananchi is where now we fall short, where the common mwananchi doesn't understand the basics that are needed to run a government. Therefore, let us also work on how do we communicate? How do we ensure that we have an inclusive political system whereby the views of the common mwananchi will be listened to, whereby the politician at the top cadre will listen to what this common mwananchi is trying to allude to. So that when we are devising solutions moving forward, then there are solutions that are coming from the people as a whole and not from a certain faction that sits in boardrooms. So I guess let us work on our solutions as a country. Let us decide that, you know what, all of us are heading to Singapore. Let us develop that congress where all of us are heading towards one specific journey, where we are not pulling from different, directions based on our tribal, cocoons. And then number two, let us ensure that there is that communication link between the top cadre and the lower cadre, so that whatever is being discussed from the upper echelon reaches out to the common mwananchi. The truth is, when you think of shaking a baobab tree, what ends up shaking is your buttocks. So as the youth, we need a system. We need systems that are working for us. We need institutions that are supporting the youth. But are we really ready to do what it takes to ensure that the system is working for us? Ready in the sense of how, quote unquote, cheap are you to the point of you're willing to set aside a certain agenda just because you've been brought at the dinner table where food is being served. It is time as the youth that we set our priorities right, that we decided, like, what exactly do we want for our country? What is that path that we need to follow to reach that destination? Because again, they say that if you don't know where you're heading, then any road will lead you there. Let us devise and channel a specific pathway that we will use as the youth. If at all we are yearning for better governance, if at all we are yearning for working systems, if at all we are yearning for job opportunities, if at all we are yearning for a reduction in the cases of drug and substance abuse, how do we together come up with a modality that ensures that we are truly productive, because the youth is making up to 75% of the population of this country. What this means is it is us to achieve some of these agendas that are even being set aside by the president himself. Because he tells us, the president, that the Singaporean dream should be achieved in our lifetime. What it means is the youth has the stake to achieve that Singaporean dream. And again, as the youth, let us not shy away from these leadership positions. Some of us have what it takes. We might maybe be short of resources, but we have what it takes to sit in boardrooms and devise policies that are good for a nation, that are good to catapult the nation to a different level, to catapult the nation, to ensure that we have a nation that focuses on the rule of law, that no citizen should lose a life in their quest to demand for justice. And therefore, it is about the youth having a conversation. It is about the youth realizing that indeed we have what it takes. Look at what we did in 2024, June. It is from that oomph, from that courage that the youth possess, that enabled the president actually stop the draconian finance bill that maybe could have been very dangerous up to date, that could have affected most of us up to date. Therefore, to my fellow youths, it is time that we avoided, it is time that we shunned being spectators and come to the table. It is time for us to come to the table where decisions are being made. It is time for us to come from the streets to the boardrooms where policies are being drafted. Let us stop being spectators. Let us stop being online retards. Let us stop sitting in our comfort zones and waiting for somebody to panga us. It is time for we as the youth to decide and put the politicians to task and ensure that what we need is actually achieved. Through this, I believe, as the youth, we have what it takes to make our country move forward, because we are the majority.